And we are live. Welcome to Olivia's Stories, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, guys. I've made a very big mistake. I don't even know where the mistakes began or when I started to become so stupid and lustful. I've destroyed my once happy marriage because of my lustful desires. I don't even know how I got here. Everything right now is on the verge of being lost. Everything happened so fast it was like a flash, and I'm so ashamed of myself right now. I've done something so despicable. I can't even look myself in the mirror right now, and I don't think I will ever be able to forgive myself for having an affair and cheating on my husband. I blame myself for everything. I got so carried away by my lust that I couldn't even control myself. I'm so confused and lost, but I hope by posting here someone might learn something. I have ruined my marriage with my own hands, all just because of some fun with a younger person. My kids won't even talk or look at me, and the same with every other member of my family. My husband doesn't want me anymore and is saying he wants a divorce. I know you must be wondering about what happened, so first my backstory. My name is Fiona, and I am a 45-year-old woman. My husband, Victor, is a 47-year-old man. We have been married for 25 years, and we live in Alabama in the United States of America. We have 3 kids, Ariel and Arthur, who are twins and are 23 years old, and Skylar, who is male and 19 years old. My husband and I were high school sweethearts and got married a few years after we were both done with high school. My husband was the star quarterback back then in school, LOL, and I was the nerd that was constantly getting bullied. That all stopped when he started protecting, and throughout my last years in high school, I never got bullied again. High school was rough. I was the geek, always a target for bullies. Victor was the big shot quarterback everyone loved. It honestly felt like he belonged to a different universe. Then, out of the blue one day, lol, we bumped into each other in the hallway, and things took a surprising turn. Victor, against all odds, started hanging out with me. It felt like something out of a teen movie, LOL. He saw beyond the labels and actually liked me for me. As we spent time together, he became my shield, standing up to the bullies who had been making my life a misery. With Victor around, the bullying stopped. His presence was like a force that made those jerks back off. I couldn't believe the star quarterback was choosing to be with me, just a regular girl trying to get by. Victor not only had my back, but showed me a world where kindness mattered more than cruelty. In his company, I found an unexpected ally and friend, and then a husband, LOL. I remember our first date. I was all jittery, waiting for Victor to show up for our first high school date. I was 16 and he was soon to be 18 and done with high school. The vibe was like a mix of excitement and nerves. When he finally came, he had this cute, shy smile that just made me feel good. We kicked off our date with a chill walk in the park, where we chatted and shared our embarrassing and hilarious secrets. Victor genuinely cared about what I had to say. He made me feel important. We sat on a bench, snacking on popcorn, and watched the sunset. It felt like the start of something real special. That first high school date turned into a memory I'll never forget. On our second high school date, Victor surprised me with this cool 2-seater bike, a fun ride that had us pedaling around town, laughing like crazy people. After our biking adventure, Victor suggested a picnic. We found a nice spot in the park, laid out a blanket, and chowed down on homemade sandwiches and snacks. It was just us, enjoying good food and the simple pleasure of being carefree teenagers. Sitting there munching away, I couldn't help but appreciate how thoughtful Victor was. Our second date was all about having a good time together, creating another awesome memory in our high school days. On our third high school date, Victor took me to this awesome secret spot of his, a place he really loved. We wandered off into quiet trails, away from all the school, hustle, bustle, and chaos, until we stumbled upon his little hideaway. Surrounded by nature, it felt like our own peaceful escape. Victor shared why this spot meant so much to him, making it seem like our personal little haven. Chilling in his favorite hideout, I could see how much Victor trusted me, opening up about his special place. In our early 20s, with Victor at 22 and me at 20, we decided to get married. In fact, we were knee-deep in planning our marriage. College costs were like a constant weight on our wallets. Victor was grinding through medical studies as he wanted to become a medical surgeon, and I was chasing an art degree to fuel my passion. Dreams were big, but money was tight. We'd sit down, crunching numbers and trying to figure out how to have a wedding without going broke. Nights were spent talking about our future, balancing our studies with the reality of becoming a married couple. It wasn't easy on our wallets, but our youthful hope and shared determination turned those challenges into building blocks. On our big day, Victor and I found ourselves in this cute little church, surrounded by familiar faces of close friends and family. The vibe was a mix of excitement and nerves, LOL, making it clear that what we were doing was a pretty big deal. Walking down the aisle, emotions hit me like a truck. The simple setting of the church didn't take away from the fact that this moment was huge. It just made everything feel real and genuine. The church, with its modest decorations, perfectly matched the essence of our love, straightforward but deep. With our favorite people around, you could feel the joy and support in the air. Yeah, nerves were there too, like a bunch of butterflies having a party in my stomach. Totally normal given the promises we were about to make. Standing up there with Victor, looking into his eyes, I felt at ease. Our vows were simple, but you could tell they came from the heart, a testament to the love that had grown from high school days to this life-changing moment. The party afterward was a blast. Lots of toasts, laughter, and good times with the folks who've been with us through it all. Our wedding day might not have been some grand affair, but it was rich in real emotions. Years later, and we were at such good places, we graduated, and Victor is now a very successful medical surgeon. Too successful, I'd say. He always has to be on call and available regardless of the day and time. That has been affecting our relationship as he doesn't even have time for me anymore. As for me, even though I got my art degree, I never really used it, as I chose to be a stay-at-home mom, SAHM. I chose to stay home and take care of the kids while Victor went out and worked. Besides, after Victor's dad died, he left Victor a sizable inheritance, so we weren't struggling at all. Financially, we were in a very good place. Victor had everything set up. In case he did retire, so we wouldn't go broke or anything, he didn't even need to work, but he still kept working, because the hospital needed him and he loved his job. He also made sure a trust fund and college fund was set up for all our kids, so all in all, we're in a very good place. Emotionally, though, it had been a while since Victor and I had a time to ourselves or were even intimate. Our marriage life was suffering as he didn't have any time for me. I guess I should have just talked to him, but I was so desperate for any atom of affection that I went ahead and cheated. I met Charles at the grocery store. Yes, a grocery store. I was done shopping for provisions and was on my way to checkout when I bumped into him, LOL, like the way I had bumped into my husband back then in high school. Charles was young. He looked like he was only a few years older than my eldest kids, Ariel and Arthur, and he was very handsome. He apologized to me and offered to help me carry my stuff to checkout and then to my car, but I refused. Again, he offered to help pay for my stuff, but I refused since he hadn't caused me or the stuff I bought any harm by bumping into him. I then checked out and left, but he kept following me. He told me his name was Charles, and I introduced myself. It was obvious he was trying to flirt with me, so I told him my age and that I was way older than him. He told me that he didn't mind as I was beautiful. Now I know that I am beautiful, and I get complimented a lot about it. Also, people sometimes tell me that I look a lot younger than I actually am, which is understandable since I take good care of my skin and work out to keep in shape. But just hearing it from someone as young as Charles made me feel happy. Also, because of the emotional distance between me and my husband as a result of his work, I was feeling emotionally staffed for attention. I smiled and thanked him, but still I told him I was married. Charles told me that he didn't mind as he just wanted to be friends. Inwardly, I knew that was a lie, and I should have just left then and there, but I honestly don't know what stupid and idiotic thought and mistake that made me stay and give Charles my number. Before I even got home, he had already started texting me. Soon, Charles and I were texting regularly. I guess I did it because I was feeling so lonely. The kids weren't around as Ariel and Arthur were in college. Skylar was also in college as he graduated from high school early. Did I mention that the kids were big fans of their dad? They were all pursuing the medical field in college. They had taken their dad's brains LL and didn't take my creative side. Ariel was studying to become a nurse, while Arthur and Skylar were both studying to become medical surgeons. As a result of that, I was left alone at the house a lot, and that made me really lonely. Charles and I were texting a lot, and we were also flirting. I guess I should have felt guilty then, but I didn't because I felt it was harmless flirting, and what Victor didn't know would never hurt him. Charles and I did not have a lot in common. He was not an art person, but was more of a music person. Unlike me, he also did not like the kind of movies I liked, but that just drew us closer. I also found out Charles was only 24 years old, only a year older than Ariel and Arthur. I felt guilty, but still stupidly I carried on. Charles was hell-bent on making me see things his way, lol. He said that if I watched some of the movies that he liked, I would like them too. He was also empathetic and would listen to me rant and talk endlessly. Now that I think about it, Charles was a walking red flag, but I was so starved for attention that I didn't even care to look further at the kind of person he was. Charles put on a facade. At first he made me trust him, but then when trouble came, he abandoned me. Charles was charismatic, and so it was easy for him to pretend that he cared about me. Soon I was smiling and laughing more to the extent that my friends, and even my kids and Victor noticed. But whenever they asked, I lied and told them I just wanted to appreciate life more. No. Charles had a way of making you feel like you were the most important person in the world to him. He honestly knew how to get under a person's skin and into their heart. Soon I was inviting Charles to the house when Victor was away to watch movies with me, and then we would try to convince each other that our movie taste was superior to the others. I knew that what I was doing was wrong, but I honestly paid no mind to it. I inwardly tried convincing myself a lot of the time that I was doing nothing with Charles, even though I knew that it would eventually lead to something. On one faithful day, Charles came over while Victor was away. Victor had previously told me that he wouldn't be coming back that night, so Charles and I had both decided that we would have a movie marathon all night long, and then Charles would leave really early in the morning before Victor would be back. Charles came over, and soon we were on Netflix watching a few movies. I honestly do not know how it happened, and I cannot even explain how it happened. It all happened quickly and in a flash, but soon Charles kissed me and I responded, and we got intimate. It was only until the next day. It was around 3 o'clock in the morning, and Victor wasn't back, but I knew he would be back by 7 or 8. I finally realized what I had done, and I hurriedly kicked Charles out before Victor would come back. I was horrified by the fact that I had cheated on my husband. What would Victor say? What would Victor do? All those questions kept running around in my mind. I felt so guilty, but I also felt horrified because I had enjoyed it. I was so emotionally starved that I had cheated on my husband with a young boy that was only a year older than my twins. And when my husband came back from the hospital, I felt so guilty, but I couldn't tell him because I knew he would divorce me and leave me. I didn't want that. I love my husband, and I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. My husband was kind, humble, and helpful, but he did not like cheating at all. My husband was the kind of person that believed in communication. He believes if you have any issues, talk it out with your partner instead of going out and cheating. I pretended as if everything was fine, and as if I didn't just cheat on my husband a few hours ago. We chatted and talked, and then Victor went to rest because he had been working all night. I blocked Charles after sending him a quick message to never message me again, and all was well for a few days. After I had blocked Charles, he called me for a few times with some numbers before finally letting me be. I was starting to feel lonely, and I realized that Charles was the only person that made me not feel bored. He entertained me. I am also ashamed to admit it, but I missed the intimacy. So after wrestling with my inner mind for a few days, I finally unblocked Charles. He soon sent me a quick text, and soon we were talking again. Charles convinced me that what Victor didn't know wouldn't kill him, and as long as he never found out about the affair, we would be safe. Charles assured me that it would be easy to hide the affair because Victor worked a lot and was usually working on weekends. And also my kids were in college, so it was just me in the house. Charles convinced me that I wasn't doing much wrong by cheating on Victor because it was Victor's fault for neglecting me. Like a person without a mind of their own, I fell for Charles's words, and soon Charles and I were having our secret affair in the house. Whenever Victor was away at the hospital for weekends, Charles would come over and spend a lot of time. We would also be intimate a lot. Charles also convinced me to start giving him money. Victor and I had a joint account, even though Victor was the one earning all the money. And also because we were well off, I started giving Charles money for stuff, like gas, groceries, clothes, and other stuff. I became so engrossed in the affair and so involved that I think I lost myself. I guess Victor must have started to suspect because he started coming home randomly a lot of times. That should have been a wake-up call for me, but I still ignored it at this point. I was so deep in with Charles that I just couldn't stop. One day, I and Charles were in the middle of being intimate. When I heard Victor's car pull up to the driveway, I was so shocked because he wasn't supposed to be home by this time. I immediately dragged Charles off me and hurriedly got dressed and arranged the bed. I had to hide Charles in one of our kids' rooms since our kids had gone off to college. Their rooms were mostly unused nowadays. It still had all their stuff from childhood, though, and they usually stayed in the rooms whenever they came to visit, so I always kept it clean. Thankfully, Victor didn't even think to check the kids' room, and I guess he didn't want me to know he was suspecting me, so he acted Norma and stayed home all throughout the day. Charles couldn't leave and had to spend the night in the kids' room. The next day, however, when Victor had left to go to work, Charles then came out. Since he had spent the night there, he hadn't really eaten much, so I let him bathe and eat breakfast with me. Then we started getting intimate. That was where I made such a huge mistake, you see. I should have just sent Charles home after having breakfast with him instead of getting intimate with him again. I guess Victor must have really suspected me because he came right back to the house and caught me and Charles right in the act of getting intimate. Have you ever seen your life flash right before your eyes? That is what happened to me the moment Victor dashed into our matrimonial bed and caught me and Charles together intimate. I immediately, on an impulse, hurriedly covered myself with the bedsheets and then started crying. Charles' clothes were on the floor, so Victor grabbed them and refused to give them to him, and then kicked Charles out naked. I just watched everything unfold, realizing that I had ruined my life. Victor didn't even scream at me, and I guess that was what horrified me the most. I wanted him to have a reaction, to say anything to me, to scream at me, to ask me how could I. I just wanted him to have a reaction, but he did not. He threw Charles' clothes in the trash and then left the house, even though I kept calling him to come back to let me explain. I cried for hours on end. What had I done? I had ruined my life, and there was no going back from here. My life was gone. My marriage that I have struggled so hard to build was gone. I knew that there was no way Victor would forgive me. I had scarred him for life. Victor was going to leave me, and I knew that I would go down. I had no source of income on my own, no assets. Suddenly, I regretted the decision I made to be a stay-at-home wife all those years. Victor didn't even waste time in broadcasting what I had done. I was even more horrified by the way he had told everyone about my betrayal and cheating. I got a notification on my phone that Victor had added me to a group chat on WhatsApp with my family, our friends, and his family. It was as if I had a premonition of what he was about to do. I tried calling him hurriedly, but he refused to pick up. Then he posted screenshot of my messages with Charles, and then did a voice note about how he had come into the house and caught me and Charles in the act. My phone started buzzing. Everyone was blowing up my phone. I was getting text messages about how I could have done something so horrible and about how I had ruined my marriage. My parents were so disappointed, my friends were disappointed and shocked, and Victor's family was enraged. I guess Victor didn't want our kids to find out by someone else telling them, so he called them and told them. I only know that because soon after my kids were calling me. At first, I was too scared to pick, but I knew my kids. If I didn't pick, they would come over to the house, and facing them in person would be even more horrifying than talking to them on the phone. So I picked up the phone. My kids were so shocked, they were so disappointed in me. I tried to give them an excuse. I tried to tell them about how I was so lonely, and that's why I did it, but they weren't hearing it. They told me why I haven't talked to them. They told me that Victor had been planning to retire soon, and that he would have all the time in the world. Safe to say I had ruined my life. My kids didn't want to talk to me anymore. My family, and even Victor's family, were enraged at what I had done, as they thought Victor and I were happy together. I tried calling Victor multiple times, but he wouldn't pick up, so I sent him a lot of texts, explaining why I did it, apologizing, and telling him I had felt so lonely, but Victor would hear none of it. He told me he knew how lonely I was, and that he had been planning to retire. But he hadn't told me because he had wanted it to be a little surprise. I couldn't believe my ears. He also told me that he had been suspecting that I had been cheating on him, and that was why he started coming home randomly. He told me he gave me only a few days to pack my stuff and leave his house. and that he would come to give me divorce papers to sign. I had to pack up and go to my parents' house because even though they were very angry at me, they would never abandon me in my time of need. As for Charles, he blocked me, and I cannot even reach him. It is as if he never existed in the first place. I know what I did was wrong, and I am regretting it. I will continue to regret it for the rest of my life. But I am hoping that by posting here, someone might see this and learn a lesson from my mistake. Thank you all for listening.